Hey everybody, welcome back to the TransWorld Motocross TransAm Forum here at Glen Helen Raceway. We are in the final chapter of tonight's session. I am right now in between, I guess I'm like an old chicken teriyaki sandwich right now between two fast guys. But anyway, Ryan Villopoto, who needs no introduction, and then my friend Mike Sleeter, who is a vet world champion, I believe, multi-time? First time vet world champion. But so both of these guys have had great careers, perhaps Villopoto on a grander scale, but they're both here to talk to you about their experiences of amateur racing and field questions from both the audience and you guys on Facebook. This is the best time to ask for some advice, so chime in, guys. But RV, you know, now that your career is wrapped up and you're actually back involved in the sport, running a track up north and everything, but does it really seem that long ago that you were at the amateur races with your family?
It does. It definitely seems like it was a bit ago, and being back here, driving in and being here at Glen Helen. I used to come here as an amateur and show up and race when I was riding 80s and things like this. There's not a better place to race an amateur race, or a local race that is. The track's really good during the winter times here. So coming back it's kind of cool. It's a different scene for me. It's very, very mellow, and there'll be a lot more people here tomorrow because there's so many people in Southern California that race. But as for the amateur scene, yeah, it definitely feels and seems like it's been a while.
So one of the things I thought was really cool, I think the first time I visited you guys in Washington was your family went all in. Your dad sold the house, right, to fund your amateur career. I mean, that's a huge leap of faith in your talent. And there's probably families here that are in the same boat right now. But looking back now, how does that make you feel about the commitment your parents made?
It's tough. As a kid, a young kid at that time, with the amount of pressure that was on my shoulders, it worked into my favor. The odds of it working for everybody sitting in this room are I mean, just to put it into perspective, it's very low. The most things that I think that comes from the amateur racing side of things is the memories and being close with your parents, your mom and dad. It keeps the kids out of trouble. It's a great sport when it comes to that. What I do see some things happening with the parents putting all this weight and pressure on top of the kids, and no disrespect, but the kid might not ever even have it. And I feel like the parents are trying to live through the kid per se, and it's putting so much pressure on the kid. The relationship as they get older, it starts to fall apart. So that's one thing that as parents have to be very careful on watching and how much pressure they are putting on their kids.
Yeah, so since we've had the TransWorld Motocross race series, one of the coolest things I get to see is a little peewee kid finishing a race and the dad high fives him, even if he's in last place or whatever. That's what motocross is about to me when you say it's a family sport. I get super bummed out when I see mini dads yelling at their kids, making them sit in the hot lock cars because they did bad in the moto, or telling them they have to jump a jump. What are your thoughts about mini parents, and did you have to deal with that?
Oh yeah, I don't want to sit here and say I had the worst, but I had it was bad at times, and looking back on it, it's one thing if your kid comes to you and says, "Hey Dad, I want to do this, and this is my goal," and says, "I want you to help me to get there." Then the kids asked you to do that, and then the pressure becomes a little bit. It's more of a joint effort, and then I think that's where the parents are putting a lot of money into the racing. Most of the time, it's all of the extra money that they have to get them there and to push them and to hopefully get them to where they want to be. And that's one thing. That's okay. Where I said it was bad is where the parents are trying to more or less live through the kids, and then you get this toxic relationship when it is older. And it's just never good. It's not a good thing to see.
What advice would you have for parents out there who are all in right now, but like, how do you keep it fun and not get that toxic relationship?
Well, I think it's very hard to separate the racing from the family or the home life per se. It would be really nice to be able to see, like, okay, yeah, it's Saturday, Sunday, we're going racing and things are serious and things get heated. But once the bikes are loaded up in the trailer, everything gets left here at the track and they go back home and whatever happened on that weekend, that's behind you. Now we look forward. We move past that and we can go to dinner on Sunday night and sit there and not even talk about racing. For me it was kind of like it revolved around racing and it is good and bad. The kids got to have some normal things and atmosphere and it can't all be about that. Parents have to be able to leave it here at the track and then have a Monday through Friday a normal father-son parenting act and role.
Okay, so I know you have 2 young twins at home. Still too young to ride. Sleeter, on the other hand, has 2 madmen at home who are, if you follow him on Instagram, you see them riding and ripping their bicycles and their motorcycles and stuff. So it looks like you're full-on destined to become a mini dad. How are you going to handle that?
The best way I could say is the way my dad did. My dad was, I had to be self-driven. I was like a little phenom on a 50 in the early 80s, and then I got hurt when I was like 9. And my dad would put me out on the track behind our house and say, all right, before we go to this race, I want you to ride this Pee-wee, and then I want to ride this, whatever you're faster on today, we're going to have you ride. So my dad was like that crazy dad, and his friend was out on the track, and he saw me go behind one of the trees, and I stopped because the bike that I was fastest on was the one that hurt me. So I stopped on that bike and like hid behind the tree so I wouldn't have to ride it. And I literally remember my dad saying, we're done, that's it. And he sold everything. I was doing dealer shows for Yamaha, and he was just like, this is me. He caught himself like, this is about me, not about him. And literally like by 5 years later, he asked me, I was like 13 or 14, you want to start racing again? I was like, heck yeah. And I never stopped riding. We got to ride for fun. I never remember being sad. I just wanted to ride. I didn't care about, the racing was cool, but my parents took me there. I didn't say I want to race every weekend. I want you to, have this pile of junk motorhome and drive us around. It was more about them thinking that's what was best for me. And when when they took it away from me, the racing, I was never sad. I can't tell you at 36 that I ever remember being sad that I wasn't racing. But when I was 13, it was like something I wanted to do, something I was reading in magazines. And at 13, at an 80 beginner, like that's when I really found the passion for it. And by no means did I have a career like Ryan over here, but there's different ways to skin a cat. And I've been working with KTM for the last 12 years. And I was a kid that came through the local scene in California and went to Loretta's and didn't win a championship, seconds and thirds, but never stopped dreaming, worked hard. My parents supported me as much as my talent showed them they should. And I've been testing for KTM for the last 12 years, and I love to ride, and that's why I'm here racing with you guys. And will my kids ride? It's going to be a race. It's going to be like full time. That's up to them. Like I got my kids into BMX. That was a dad thing, and we did it for a little bit. And I noticed they didn't really care to go, so I put the bikes away. And they just recently asked me again, when are we going to go back? Oh, when you ask me. So that's kind of how I'm going to take it for racing. When they want to go racing or they find it really cool to ride, they're more than, dad's pumped. I love it. It's not a bad sport, but I want them to be driven to do it. And I'm going to make sure they're as prepared as I can from my failures, not from my success.
Okay, so I know that you were one of the instrumental people in the Orange Brigade KTM amateur program. So you've interacted with a lot of families, like some racers who are at the top level now. In that position, what did you look for in kids that you wanted to bring in? I mean, the families played a part in the selection too, right? Because you can't hire a fast kid that has a horrible dad.
Yeah, that's a very tough thing because from managing the Orange Brigade for 5 years and being a part of that whole process of building that program, you want to win. Like the biggest thing you want to do is win. I have a boss to we got to come home with Redlands championships, but the biggest thing there is I don't want to have to put out fires as a team manager. I don't want to have to worry about, little Johnny's dad, making protests to make protests or hitting his son or doing anything like that. So that there's people always watching. Like when you get to the big nationals, like you hear people saying, but like there's someone always watching you, and it's true. Like you might not realize your son revs his bike to get out of the way. It could be Don, the editor of TransWorld, that he's riding on the track. So the kids and the parents need to realize, like, you're in the moment and you're watching your son or you're in the race, but there's someone always watching that can really take you to that next level if you're there, or actually tell someone not to take you there if you have some bad actions.
Okay, so I'm checking on our Facebook comments. So Dave Everett says, hey, RV, how many times a week do you suggest a junior racer should ride without making it a drag? We want to keep it fun for our kids.
Like Mike said, it's all dependent on the kids. If the kid loves to ride and just wants to go ride, take him riding. If the kid wants to go race, take him racing. But don't mortgage your house to go and do those things, because then that's also going to bring that's going to bring a bad taste in the mouth for you guys as parents if things don't end up working out, or the kid gets hurt or doesn't win that weekend or whatever. Like I think invest as much as you can into your kid, or as much as you're willing to do, but also invest what you see as fit for his talents and where you think he can go. Because I think, like I said before, they get lost in looking to see, okay, well, we're going to be the next, Ryan Dungey or this, and realistically, it's so far. Just try to have fun with it. But I think for the riding aspect, you really can't, as a kid or a teenager, it's up to him. You really can't ride too much.
At what level or at what point in amateur success do you feel a parent should invest in like a mechanic and a trainer and all that stuff for the kid?
That's a big question. Obviously, if they're thinking that they need to invest in a mechanic and go down that road, more than likely they're either not ready for that, or they may not be good enough for that yet. Because if you're thinking that, and without, say, somebody like KTM or Kawasaki not coming to you and wanting to kind of roll out the red carpet with the bikes and the mechanic and the help, then there's a disconnect somewhere there. Because if you're the guy, believe me, they'll be knocking on your door. As the amateur, for me, when I grew up racing, you had Alessi that was the guy, period, every single race. Finally, I think like I was 11, it was I had to make a decision between Yamaha and Kawasaki. Ended up going to Kawasaki for Team Green, because they have a great amateur program, especially when I was an amateur. They still do today. But for me, I was looking big picture, and they had Pro Circuit. Now you have multiple good teams out there, but it just seemed like Pro Circuit was on another level when I was coming up. So there's some things, there's some options and things that you guys can do.
So it's pretty hard to fault your career because it's been so successful. But looking back in your amateur days, is there any one mistake that you made or something that you wish you did differently?
I mean, you're asking me now, but I was a kid then, and it's like, ask a kid, well, what mistake did you make? Would you redo it?
Do you regret the puka shells?
Yeah. No, man, that was in. I was crushing it then. But no, for me, I don't think you can't ask a kid, do I regret something? I don't think I do.
Yeah. How about for both of you guys? I mean, how about okay, so I remember when Tony Alessi was a Cycle News contributor and I was a Cycle News editor, and his kid, Mikey, broke his arm or something, and I remember him texting or emailing me, what can I feed him to make his bones heal faster? So kids get injured. There's also things like Loretta's qualifiers that come up and big races. But I mean, At what point do you draw the line where you make your kid get on a bike before he's ready and healthy again?
Well, there's, I think, different lines in the sand. If it's a head injury, like it has to do with your head, that's a pretty deep line in the sand, and you just, whenever you're released to come back is when you don't play with that. You don't play with your head, you don't play with your back, your neck, things like that. I can remember I went to Loretta Lynn's. I was just about out of the 80 class, crashed in practice, broke my collarbone. Well, we're from Washington State, so we drove. It was a long way. So I basically, I wasn't made to ride, but my parents were like, hey, we should really try to ride, and get the cortisone shot and whatever you get it, what you can take. And I gave it a go. I think I got like 13th in the moto, and then after that gave it up. So I think it all depends on, number one, the kid, and the, I guess the pros and cons. As an amateur, there's really not any pros to it. It's more than likely all going to be bad, because there's always going to be next year. If you miss Loretta's one year, that doesn't mean you're not going to get a ride. Actually, to me, the amateur side of things, Loretta's, when I was coming up, seemed like it was this huge thing. Now it seems like it's not this big thing anymore. There's multiple other big races, and you've seen guys like a Ryan Dungey now currently racing that was even less of a amateur racer than I was. And look where he's at today. So for you to think that you have to win Loretta's, you have to make this, you have to do this, that doesn't translate into you getting a ride. Because look at Mike, currently has a ride and still races and is a great rider, but he was the guy in amateur racing. And I don't know how, has 100 titles in amateur racing, and look where he's at. And then you also have James, has a bunch of titles also and has done very well. So it doesn't, what you do in amateurs isn't going to correlate in what's going to happen later.
Okay, you mentioned like head injuries, and you were talking about that being very serious, but beyond that, protective equipment in our sport. I mean, you've been one of the guys that finished your career wearing a neck brace, and I know you wore under protector. Talk about the importance of every bit of safety equipment that you can get.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, I didn't wear a hard chest protector. I did as an amateur and did as a lights in the lights class I rode with a hard front chest protector and not the back. I think it should be the other way around. Wear it on your back and not your front. But for me, the neck brace deal was like, hey, if it's 1% better, if it's 5% better, maybe it wasn't any better in this particular crash. For me, I looked at it as on a piece of paper and said, okay, well, if it's better and if it can be better, if it's that 1% better, then I'll take that on my side, in my favor. So for the neck brace thing, I do believe in them. Do they work in every single crash? No. They're not going to work in every single crash, but I think to have them on is definitely going to benefit you. I think going to benefit you most times than not. I think everybody wears pretty much every other safety thing other than you see guys not wearing chest protectors and not wearing neck braces. Those are the two things, and I definitely think the chest protector can help for sure. It's definitely better. It's hard to find. At the time when I was racing, it was hard to find a chest protector that would match really well with the neck brace. And I thought the neck brace was something that I wasn't going to not wear. I was going to wear the neck brace over the chest protector. But like Atlas now has a chest protector that's built for the neck brace, and I think Liat does too. So there is options out there for the safety equipment and whatever brand you are running.
So speaking of neck braces, I believe you're the first pro-level rider to race with a neck brace in the United States ever.
Yeah, I was 2007 maybe. I think I was in 2007. I think it was the year I was the first guy to wear a neck brace in Supercross competition, like at a pro level. And I was going through a rough time mentally. My younger brother passed away, and I was kind of searching. Came off a big injury at McGrath's race, and it really gave me a lot of confidence at the time. And they've come a long way since then, the neck braces, and It's really cool to be involved with like the kind of the movement. I think the next weekend in San Diego or a couple weeks later, Josh Grant and Kevin Windham podiumed like with a neck brace on like right away, and then it just was a snowball. Ryan always wore a neck donut as an amateur on his chest protector as some type of protection. And so to see where Atlas and Lee and Alpine Star and all the companies that improve neck braces now, it's really good to see the movement. And I kind of wanted to touch on real quick what Ryan said about the lines in the sand with injuries and what you do. And I agree completely from the OEM standpoint and like a team manager looking at the riders. Like the riders and the parents need to realize when your son or daughter's out there racing, and if they get riding with a torn ACL or something that you don't see physically like wrong, no one knows that. Everyone thinks that's their best day. So it's always best to ride, I feel, and race at your best. You're not going to get more support as a rider riding around in 12th or 16th injured. Like you don't get a hard charger award at every race you go to, So I think it's most important if you can't ride at your best, or if you're at your best a 5th place guy, if you go out and race injured, you're definitely not going to win still. So why not wait until you're completely healthy and race at your best? And just as a parent, when your child's healthy, and as a racer, when you're healthy. It's best just to prepare yourself to be your best, because your best is probably not going to get that support you really want. And just being there is actually going to hurt you more than help you.
Cool. So looking at some questions here. Ryan, we touched a little earlier in the introduction about the motocross park you're running. So there's quite a few people asking about Grays Harbor ORV Park in Washington. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically, up in Grays Harbor, actually the town's McClary, me and a buddy, a partner, took over the lease, and it's a 160-acre park and has a motorcycle track, has a flat track on it. For us, riding is a real pain in the ass up in Washington. The drive's far, and depending on where you're at, you deal with traffic through Seattle and things like that. So as a kid, for me, growing up, I was going 2 hours minimum to go ride. So this came up, and I'm back up in Washington now, and this place is only an hour 20 from my house, and my buddy, we were talking about it, and just bullshitting over, well, what about this, what about that, and then this came up. We kind of jumped on it, looked into it, and found out that it was that it could work for us, and so we made a shot at it and ended up getting the lease, and now we're basically going to revamp the whole place and the track and things like that, and get the facilities all up to snuff, and our goal is the track, obviously, and getting that to where it's really good. And right now the track's really fast. It's got some pretty good dirt on it, but we want to definitely do a facelift on it, and as for the racing and the events and things like that, we'll have our own little series and a camp through the summer and things like that. So we'll have all that stuff up here pretty soon. So it should be a good time.
So are you looking forward to being a track owner and seeing psycho mini parents yelling at their kids?
I don't know. Like, I think, I mean, somebody else asked me that, and I'm like, well, I don't have any problem throwing their ass out, because it's not going to hurt my feelings if they're doing something that I disagree with, or that I think is out of line. It's one thing to be hard on your kids and make them tough and make them better human beings and better adults, but there's also, like I said, there's a line in the sand that has to be watched. So I'm sure we'll have to deal with the mini parents, but it's nothing that I haven't, I guess, dealt with actually myself personally.
So Mike, you're still racing at, what, you're 36 now?
36, yeah.
Still racing at a very high level at your age. There's guys out here and watching that, are not mini parents, but like vet class dudes. But like, how do you maintain your speed and your fitness, and what are the most important things for racing successfully at our advanced ages?
Really recovery. I used to think when I was really trying to make a run at it and be my best as a pro was to train more, ride more, do more, and I really think I was just fatigued more than sharp. And nowadays I'm like, if I'm tired and I want to sit on the couch, I'll sit on the couch. But I generally like training. I generally like the whole process of it. I do like to eat a lot, so the training offsets the calories. But no, and then obviously my job with KTM, if I don't stay sharp on the bike, it's not relative to the testing. And if I'm just riding 3 days a week and not trying to see where I'm at and push myself, that's really what keeps me going as far as racing. But yeah, really recovery and working on like simple technique stuff still, like turn tracks and stuff. It really humbles you if you go out and spin laps on these tracks, and besides Glen Helen that have big berms and are real easy to ride, it doesn't really help your craft. So I recommend guys like in their late 20s, early 30s and older, just to really go back to basics and make sure you're recovered and you're healthy, just a healthy lifestyle.
Cool. And then the safety equipment.
Yeah, safety equipment's huge. Make sure you have the right equipment. Make sure you're even getting see a physical therapist or any ailing injury. We have to keep up on ourselves a little more. We won't be having our friends help us in the truck more often than not.
Okay, so when you're a kid, you race off of adrenaline and just youth, right? As you get a little older, you really have to put in the time training to be able to do motocross because it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many guys that I've raced with at a high level, like when it really counted as a job, that would physically lap me. But since I sustained riding through my career, like as a test rider, guys that have came back that would have literally lapped me, that I can ride with them now because I'm still sharp. And to come off the couch and they have the speed, but this endurance doesn't correlate. So yeah, it's really critical just to keep, basically base miles and a lot of time on the bike.
All right, RV, how much do you still train?
I don't train a whole lot anymore. Last time I rode was Saturday night in Australia, so went down there and did that race. But for me, it's technically still winter up where we're at, and we just got done with a little snowstorm, and it's raining like it is here right now. But springtime, I'll call down and I'll get a bike shipped up. But for me, the training was never fun. Wasn't something that I wanted to do. So that's why I had to have a trainer all throughout my career. So now, at this point in time where I'm at, I'm pretty much just laying low. I try to eat healthy, and obviously not just blow up like a tick. So, it's tough though. It definitely is tough. I didn't get blessed with those genes to just be skinny, just eating McDonald's all the time. So I have to watch what I eat and try to do the minimum amount that I want to do.
Okay, so touching on the safety thing again, Kyle Perner asked, tell us a little bit about Mobius and your involvement in that. I mean, it's a top-level knee brace that's changed some of the philosophies about knee bracing.
Yeah, well, Mike was just saying about injuries as an amateur. I tore my ACL at Whitney when I was 13, I think, 14, and my dad, never thought we had the time to get it fixed. So I rode till I was 24 or so without one. So, and then ended up getting it fixed, tear it again, and getting it fixed again, and tore it again. So who knows? It probably would have never held anyways. But so I think that back to that was getting your stuff fixed, or the time that it takes to get them fixed. It's only going to make you better in the long run. Maybe I wouldn't have had to get it fixed when I was pro if I would have got it fixed when I was younger. But Mobius, yeah, it was funny. I think it was my second ACL that I tore. Was sitting and somebody contacted us and said, hey, we have a new knee brace. I'm like, okay, well, how many times have you heard that? We have a new product, and it shows up and it's not what you were either told it was going to be, or it's just not any good. But sure, I'll listen. I'll look, at least give them 5 minutes, and then if I like it, then we can go from there. Darren actually was the designer of it, and he just brought it out, showed it, and I was really impressed with it right away. So as soon as I was able to start riding, I got basically a prototype And I said, okay, the things are great. So right then is where I wanted to, try to be involved with it as much as I could. So we got a team of guys together, and we, took the knee brace from where it was and actually got it to production, and now we're doing it's doing a great job. The company is doing really well, and it's cool to see it happening and to kind of be on the ground level of it and get it going and be a part of it and be partners in the company and develop the brace. It was cool to see.
One thing I just kind of realized is that both of these guys are both involved in the coffee industry, right? So Sleeter, first, let's hear a little bit about Mainline. Why did you start that, and how's it work?
Mainline, I get to work for I'd say one of the better OEM companies, KTM North America, and I'm stoked to ride that. But I've always wanted kind of something of my own, but I didn't want to play in the space that I work in, 8 to 5. So me and a buddy were just out mountain biking one day, and I was like, man, it'd be so cool to have this coffee shop, a real cool vibe, and obviously we're not there yet. So we kind of came up with the Mainline Coffee Co., and it's all online subscription. I've kind of turned into a bit of a coffee snob now and having my coffee, and once you have good coffee, it usually happens that way. And then it was really cool to see Ryan up in the Northwest doing his deal. It's a fun, coffee is a lifestyle, it's a culture, and it's usually a good way to, just catch up with your friends over coffee. It's a fun culture to be a part of. Hopefully one day down south I'll be able to have what Ryan has up north, but it's been cool seeing what they're doing up there for sure.
Ryan, so yours is a coffee shop, right? Is it one of those? Is it one of those drive-up bikini baristas?
No, it's not. It's not one of those. There's a couple of those down the road.
So, where is it? What's it called?
Well, so basically, my wife's from down here. I'm from up Paulsbo, so we obviously through the course of racing in the years of racing, things were very busy, and she was just engulfed into my racing. So after I retired, we were kind of sitting around, obviously, okay, what are we going to do next? What's our what's our plan? Business-wise, obviously we had a plan, life-wise, but what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, hey, Southern California is the markets, no matter what you go into, the competition is so high unless you have this niche, which there's just so many people and there's so much stuff going on and everybody's kind of done everything. I was like, hey, we've been up home. We know how many people are there. We see the businesses that are there. It'd be a lot easier to do it up there. So we ended up moving back home and tossed around a few other ideas once we moved back home. And then we have a little commercial piece of property that we were thinking about maybe putting one there. And once we did a little more research and found out, or looked into it, what it was going to take to get it on the piece of property, we were just cruising along on Craigslist and found a kind of a turnkey one. So instead of doing all the work and finding out you don't like to do it, we ended up just buying one that was for sale in Silverdale, which is the next town over from us. So it's Urban City Brew. It's my wife's little baby. So obviously I'm a part of it, but that's kind of her gig. And right now it's one drive-up stand. She's putting the second location in the YMCA, a YMCA in Gig Harbor, which is 30 minutes south of us, called and wants us to put one in there. With the grand scale of things to hopefully roast our own beans in the future at that commercial piece where we were going to put the original drive-up. So we're moving along slowly with it, and it's fun. It keeps her busy, and I actually have a headache still right now because I didn't have my coffee this morning.
All right. So in closing, so this whole TransWorld Motocross race series, my former publisher Mark Fiore and I were talking several years ago, and we're like, man, we've launched TransWorld Motocross, 15 years deep. It's been great. We wanted to do something to grow the local race scene. And local racing at the time was pretty weak. I'd go to races and there'd be 100 people there. So we've launched this series, try to put a different twist on it, our own little spin. And the last race at Paris, we had 630 people just at a local weekend race. So it's been really gratifying for me to give back to the sport in our region. and now I understand, the RVMX Cup, which is happening New Year's Eve, the end of this year. Tell me a little bit about your inspiration for that, and tell me about the event.
Yeah, well, Tom Shields ran a few of the races in Texas, Texas Winter Series, approached us and approached me and said, hey, what about doing this? And he also does the JS7 race in Texas, and I was obviously retired, moving on, looking for other things to get involved with. I liked his idea. I liked his vision on what it could be. And for me, kind of one of the big things is once again, I'm from Washington State, and it's a long ways to drive to Tennessee. And really, I mean, yeah, we had Mammoth and things like that, but it's a smaller race. And at the time, there was no qualifiers. When I used to race, it was pretty small, but a great event. But the nearest national was to the Texas rounds. So we talked about it, and we were like, okay, well, when can we do it? What's great? What's a good time? What track? And so on. And we knew we wanted it to be a West Coast round all the manufacturers here, the most moto family people, riders this whole industry has is probably Southern California, and there's not a race like that. So Paula popped into our head. They have a great facility. The casino's right there that has the hotel and a restaurant and gas station. So then we were trying to figure out, what's a good time to do it, not conflicting with anybody else's stuff. And then, New Year's Eve, it's right before Anaheim. Families have it off on vacation. They're obviously not out doing adult things if they have kids most of the time. So why can't we bring a whole atmosphere here in Southern California at Paula, have a great event, and do it for, say, the West Coast people. And we'll get the people from Texas and Tennessee and the East Coast, but we need a race out here. And then roll right into Anaheim. If they want to extend their vacation a little bit, it's right before Anaheim, and they can go and watch. So hopefully we'll be able to get more people involved with it than just the standard people that go to the nationals. Maybe some Europeans, because there's a lot of Europeans, there's a lot of Australians that come for Anaheim 1, and with all the manufacturers, with all the shops, with all the vacation riding clubs, I'm sure they can round up a bike, and hopefully we have a great event.
I heard the trophies are going to be your face. Is that true?
Maybe so. Should they be?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know what the trophies will be just yet.
Okay, so RVMX Cup is the website to learn more about the New Year's Eve race that Ryan Villopoto is putting on for us. TransWorld Motocross will be out there supporting it, of course, and he's always been awesome to work with throughout his pro career, as grumpy as he is. That
was only when I was a professional. Yeah, so, okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Many thanks to Mike Sleeter and Ryan Villopoto. Let's give them a hand.